Ah, so you came back, dripping in the kind of chaos they'll never understand. They thought strength was loud. They thought power came with screaming, slamming fists, breaking glass. They thought chaos was messy, but you broke every assumption the moment you walked in and said nothing. Your silence rattled them louder than 1,000 war drums, because silence, when worn with confidence, isn't emptiness, it's a weapon. Look at them now, twitching, shifting, eyes darting like rats in a burning maze. They can't sit still in the same room as you because your stillness is heavier than their noise. That's the thing weak people never understand. Real power doesn't perform. It doesn't beg to be noticed. It doesn't need a stage. Real power is quiet, controlled, surgical. It's the way you move without announcing yourself. It's the way you decide without hesitation. It's the way your presence rewrites the entire atmosphere without a single word. And now, they're panicking. They thought they'd prepared for the storm. But you didn't bring thunder. You brought calm. And calm terrifies them, because anyone can predict rage. Anyone can fight noise. But how do you fight a storm that doesn't flinch? How do you dismantle someone who doesn't even blink when the ground shakes? You can't. That's why they're breaking in front of you. That's why their confidence is cracking like glass under pressure. Your calm is the loudest scream they've ever heard, because it tells the truth. You don't need them. You don't need validation. You don't need to prove yourself in their circus. You've already won before the first move. And the scariest part, they know it. They keep asking themselves, why doesn't it bother you? Why aren't you reacting? They don't understand that your calm isn't weakness. It's calculation. They mistake your silence for passivity, but what they don't realize is that silence is your battleground. And in that space, they're losing before the fight even begins. Think about it. Weak people need noise to exist. They need validation, confirmation, eyes on them, applause in the background just to feel alive. But you move without audience. You build without applause. You sharpen your blade in the dark, with no witnesses but your own reflection. And that is why they can't breathe around you. Because deep down, they know your power isn't borrowed. It's not fake. It's not built on fragile lies. It's self-forged, self-fed, self-disciplined. Watch how their hands shake when you don't flinch at their little games. They throw insults, hoping you'll break character. They gossip in circles, hoping you'll defend yourself. They create storms of drama, expecting you to step in and drown with them. But you stand still, eyes steady, energy unbothered. And that drives them mad. Because the truth is, nothing is scarier to the insecure than a person who refuses to perform. And that's you. Your aura says, I don't need to prove. I don't need to explain. I don't need to shout. And the moment you stopped needing their noise, you stole every ounce of their control. That's why they shake. That's why the room bends around you. Because when someone has mastered themselves, no one else can master them. You're not controlled by anger. You're not swayed by gossip. You're not broken by rejection. You walk through their chaos like a ghost in the fire. Untouched, unbothered, undeniable. And here's the cruel part. Your calm exposes their weakness louder than any argument could. It shines a light on every insecurity they've tried to bury. It forces them to face themselves, and they can't stand it. They can't stand you. Not because you hurt them, but because you don't even have to. Your power isn't loud, it's surgical. And that's why it terrifies them. You ever notice how they talk louder when you say nothing? How their words speed up? How their voices crack? How their laughter feels forced? That's not confidence. That's fear disguised as performance. They're not laughing at you. They're laughing for themselves. They're trying to drown out the silence you carry like a weapon. Because silence, when paired with self-control, isn't emptiness. It's a mirror. It reflects back everything they don't want to see. Their doubts, their insecurities, their fragile masks. And the longer you stay calm, the more the mirror cracks them open. That's why the air shifts when you enter a room. It's not magic, it's pressure. It's the unbearable weight of someone who doesn't need approval. Look at them squirm. They thought power meant walking in with noise, but your calm presence strips them bare. Their rehearsed lines, their fake confidence, their puffed up egos, they collapse the second they realize you're not reacting. Because your calm is control, and control is everything. And here's the paradox. They'll call you cold, heartless, detached. But that's just projection. They can't understand that calm isn't the absence of feeling, it's the mastery of it. Rage, you've tamed it. Fear, you've dissected it. Doubt, you've buried it under discipline. That's why they shake. That's why they panic. Because your calm proves what they always feared. You're built differently. And the scariest part, you don't use that calm to prove anything. You use it to choose. Choose when to move, when to speak, when to strike. And by the time you do, it's too late for them. Because calm isn't passive, it's predatory. You're the storm that whispers instead of screams. And that whisper is louder than any roar they've ever known. Watch closely. When you sit still, they move restless. When you breathe steady, they choke on their own air. When you remain calm, their world begins to shake. That's the paradox of power. It's not always about doing more. Sometimes it's about doing less, about being so anchored in yourself that others drown in the waves of their own instability. They mistake your calm for quiet. But it's not. It's a calculation, a slow tightening of the noose without ever raising your hands. Every pause, every silence, every measured glance, it all cuts deeper than shouting ever could. You've turned composure into a battlefield, and without lifting a finger, you've already made them surrender. Look at their eyes. They dart like prey, sensing the predator, but not seeing the fangs. They can't handle that you don't play their game. They thrive on reactions, on chaos, on pulling emotions out of people like strings from a puppet. But when they pull yours, nothing moves. No strings, no reaction, just stillness. That's when they realize you're not a puppet. You're the one holding the scissors. That calm of yours, it terrifies them because it whispers one truth they can't outrun. You're in control, and control is the most dangerous weapon in the world. People spend lifetimes chasing it, but you wear it like second skin. You don't fight for attention. You don't beg for understanding. You don't crumble under stares. You just exist, steady, unshaken. And that's enough to unravel them. And here's the brutal part. They can't even accuse you of anything. They can't point and say, he shouted, he broke, he fought. No, you stayed calm. You stayed silent. And that silence burns them worse than fire. Because silence forces them to listen to themselves. And most people can't survive the sound of their own truth. That's why your calm isn't just power, it's punishment. Even when you leave the room, you don't really leave. Your calm lingers like smoke after a fire, staining everything it touches. They replay your silence in their minds like an echo they can't erase. They'll sit there in the quiet of their own homes, replaying the way you looked at them without blinking, the way you didn't answer when they tried to bait you, the way your stillness told them more than words ever could. That's what makes your calm so terrifying. It follows them. It whispers in the cracks of their confidence. It crawls under their skin when they think they're alone. Because calm, real calm, is unforgettable. It exposes them to themselves. And you know what? Most people can't handle that reflection. They'll try to flip the script, to label your stillness as arrogance, your silence as weakness. But deep down, they know. They know you weren't frozen. You were focused. You weren't avoiding. You were choosing, and choice is everything. Because when you stay calm, you're telling the world, I'm not controlled by you. I move when I decide, not a second before. That's why they're shaking. That's why their world feels fragile when you're around. You've trained yourself to remain unmoved, and that discipline exposes their chaos. Every stutter, every nervous laugh, every twitch, They're all admissions of defeat, even if they don't say it out loud. And here's the cruel irony. They'll keep talking about you. Long after the moment passes, long after the lights go out, your calm will still own space in their heads. Because when you master silence, you don't just control the room, you control their memory of it. Your calm isn't temporary, it's eternal. And that eternity haunts them more than any war cry ever could. They thought chaos was their weapon. They thought noise was their shield. But what they never realized is that calm is the ultimate trap. Because calm doesn't rush, calm doesn't stumble, calm doesn't need to win in one move. It waits, it watches, it suffocates, and you've become the embodiment of that. You don't just stay calm, you are calm. The storm could rip roofs off, fire could rain from the sky, accusations could fly like arrows, and yet your breathing stays even, your eyes stay steady, your pulse never betrays you. That unnerves them more than any aggression ever could, because aggression can be matched, noise can be returned. But calm can't be touched, it can't be defeated, it can't be broken. Calm is a wall without cracks, a silence without escape, and when you stand in it, you don't just control the moment, you erase their control entirely. Look at them squirming. Look at the way they scramble for reactions, the way they manufacture drama, the way they shout louder, hoping to drown out the sound of your stillness. But nothing works. They're playing checkers on a table you've already cleared. Their panic is proof of your power. And here's the truth they'll never admit. Your calm exposes their addiction to chaos. Without storms, they are nothing. Without attention, they are dust. But you thrive in silence. You sharpen your focus in solitude. You wear composure like armor. And the more they throw at you, the clearer it becomes. You've already won. Because calm isn't passive, calm is decisive, calm is final. And every second you stay composed, you're telling them a truth they can't stand. You don't fight like they do. You fight smarter, quieter, sharper. That's why they're shaking. Not because you shouted, not because you struck, but because you didn't have to. Most people will never understand the discipline it takes to stay calm when your whole world is shaking. They'll never know the war that rages beneath the surface. When you choose silence instead of rage, composure instead of collapse. But you do. You've walked that fire, you've held that storm inside your chest and refused to let it spill. And that's why you stand apart. Because calm isn't natural, it's earned. It's forged in nights when you wanted to scream but swallowed the sound. In moments when your hands shook but you kept them steady. In battles where your name was dragged through the mud, but your presence never faltered. Calm isn't born, it's built, and you built yours brick by brick, wound by wound, betrayal by betrayal. That's why when you enter a room, people feel it. They don't feel noise, they feel weight. The weight of someone who has been tested by storms and came out quieter, sharper, colder. That weight can't be faked. It can't be bought. It can't be copied. That weight is yours alone. And here's the gift, hidden in that curse. Your calm is no longer just survival. It's transformation. You don't just endure. You command. You don't just walk through the fire. You carry its ashes in your silence. Proof that you can't be broken. And every time they try to rattle you, every time they try to provoke you, every time they try to shake your core, they fail. And failure leaves marks they'll never forget. Because here's the dark truth. They'll forget the words you said. They'll forget the arguments, the noise, the back and forth. But they will never forget the way you stayed calm when everything screamed for you to break. That calm will haunt them, and it will elevate you. What they don't realize is this. Calm isn't weakness. It's an edge. Every second you sit still, every moment you refuse to flinch, you're sharpening a presence stronger than any noise. You see, panic is loud, lies are loud, fear is loud, but truth doesn't need volume. Truth just stands unshaken and waits for the dust to settle. And when it does, you're still there, stronger, louder in silence than they ever were in noise. That's why they're shaking. Not because you yelled, not because you fought back in their language. No, they're shaking because they can't read you. They can't predict you. And in a world addicted to control, unpredictability is the most terrifying power of all. You're not reacting on their timeline. You're not dancing to their song. You've built your own rhythm, and they don't know how to keep up. Look at them. Watch closely. The same people who thought you were soft. The same ones who mistook your kindness for fragility. Now they're stumbling over their own words. They're cracking under pressure you didn't even apply. Why? Because they finally realized you're not playing the game. You're rewriting it. Calm is control. Calm is strategy. Calm is the storm they never see coming. You don't need to roar. You're the silence before the earthquake. The stillness before the flood. The pause before the world tilts on its axis. And they can feel it in their bones. Even if they'll never admit it. They feel that weight pressing down on their chest every time you walk into the room. They feel that reminder that they're not built like you, that they don't carry storms like you, that they don't walk with shadows that obey them. And here's the secret. They can shake all they want. You'll never break, because calm isn't the absence of chaos. It's the mastery of it, and that's your throne. You ever notice how silence crawls under their skin? How the absence of your reaction becomes the loudest scream in the room? That's what they fear. Not your words, not your fire, your silence. Because silence forces them to hear their own thoughts, and they can't survive in their own heads. That's the game you've mastered. You don't need to expose their lies. You don't need to argue your worth. You let them stew in the echo of their own weakness until it eats them alive. And every time you sit still, every time you refuse to take their bait, they collapse just a little more. They mistake it for patience, but it's not. It's precision. It's a psychological edge. Look at them shaking, pretending they've got control when in reality, you've trapped their entire ego in a cage of doubt. Because when someone can't predict you, when they can't control your next move, they start fighting shadows. They argue with ghosts. They break themselves down while you stand untouched. That's the real victory, not the noise, not the struggle, the unraveling of their mind while you sit calm, composed, untouchable. That's why you terrify them. You're not an opponent they can measure. You're not a player in their game. You're the game board itself. You don't move to their rhythm. They stumble to yours. And the cruel truth? You don't even have to try. You're not bending. You're not chasing. You're just existing. And your existence alone is enough to dismantle the image they built of themselves. See, calm isn't just power. It's the mirror they can't look into. It shows them everything they pretend to be, but aren't. It shows them that their strength was only volume. Their confidence was only noise. And when the noise fades, they're left exposed, raw, trembling. You don't need to raise your voice. You don't need to lift your hand. Just keep breathing steady, keep moving slow, because your calm isn't silence, it's suffocation, and they know it. This is the part they never prepared for. The moment when calm doesn't just silence them, it rewrites the hierarchy. Look around. Their voices don't matter anymore. Their noise is just background static to the presence you bring into the room. Every glance, every step, every pause, it carries weight they can't replicate. That's the power of restraint. That's the authority of composure. See, they thought chaos was strength. They thought shouting made them leaders, that anger made them warriors. But you understood something ancient. True dominance isn't loud. It's still like a storm gathering on the horizon, still like an edge resting on a table, sharp without moving, still like the truth itself, unchanging, undeniable, eternal. And in that stillness, you rise, not by demanding respect, but by becoming impossible to ignore. Not by forcing your way in, but by being the only presence that lingers when the dust settles. The room doesn't revolve around their noise anymore. It bends to your silence. That's why their knees shake. That's why their eyes dart. Because somewhere deep down, they know. The throne has shifted. You didn't take it by force. You didn't steal it with tricks. You earned it by becoming the one thing they could never be: unshakable. And history only remembers the unshakable. Long after their noise fades, after their names vanish in the echo of their own weakness, yours will remain, etched in the silence they feared. So wear it well, this calm, this power, this throne. Because when you walk out, the room doesn't go back to normal. It never does. It stays altered, haunted, redefined. And everyone who sat in it knows the truth. They weren't in the presence of a person. They were in the presence of something greater. You ever notice how the room never feels the same after you leave? The air is thicker. The silence is heavier. It's almost like you drag the gravity with you. That's the difference between you and them. They try to be remembered with noise, but noise fades. You're remembered because of the echo. The way their skin crawls when they think of your calm. The way their heart races when your name slips into a conversation. And here's the truth they'll never admit. They study you. They replay your movements like a film they can't crack. How you sat there without flinching. How you spoke without rushing. How you held the weight of the room with nothing but presence. That's what shakes them the most. They realize now it wasn't an accident. It wasn't luck. It was design. You built yourself into something that couldn't be ignored. And now you haunt them. Because you showed them what control really looks like. Not control over others, control over yourself. And when someone masters themselves, they become untouchable. You became the storm they can't measure, the book they can't read, the silence they can't escape. That's why they shake, because deep down, they know they're still guessing. And you've already written the ending. And here's where the story flips forever. Because your calm isn't just power anymore, it's prophecy. The way you carry yourself isn't just about today, it's about tomorrow. It's about the stories they'll tell when your back is turned. It's about the legacy that grows in whispers and shadows, painting you larger than life. That's how icons are born, not from shouting their names, but from the silence that follows their steps. They'll say you were different. They'll say you were dangerous. They'll say you carried something no one else could touch. And they'll be right, because you weren't there to fit in their world. You were there to shift it, and the shift already happened. They feel it. You feel it. The whole room feels it. The game board's been flipped, and your name is etched on the new rules. So let them talk. Let them fear. Let them wonder what move you'll make next. You don't need to prove anything anymore. The proof is already in their trembling hands, their restless eyes, their broken confidence. You're not fighting for space in their world. You've already taken it, quietly, completely, permanently. And that's why they'll never forget you. Not because you were loud, not because you demanded it, but because your calm power left a scar on reality itself. And scars never fade.